Okay, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. We are live with John Willis, Nicole Sauce, and Jack Spirko. Say hi, everybody.
Hey, guys.
I thought it would be fun to have the three of us together just to have a state of the world discussion. And then I got the plague, and John put out on his streams that I was going to make this stream no matter how sick I was. And he was right, because I'm pretty sure I can't infect you from my desk. But that's what's going on in my life. It's just, lots of tea and water and sleep at this point. But after that personal sharing, let's just go around. How's everybody doing today? You guys know how I am. Jack, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. I just had WordPress crash on me, and I have to redo the post to go with my show today. The show's done, so I'm good.
Yeah, at least the show's. It's nice when the show's done early, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
22 degrees. 22 degrees. Animals are all done. Everything that I have to do today is already done. So anything past that is a bonus. Everything's good here. Everybody here is good. Just a normal day.
Awesome. John has a lot of normal days.
Normal for here. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like...
Our world hasn't really changed any. We're kind of about exactly the same as we were 5 years ago, right? Just a lot further ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, same.
Same.
If you hear background noise here, they are building a structure in front of my house right now, which is kind of fun on the other side of this wall. So my world is about to change in a big way.
For the better.
Yeah, like I'll be able to walk out my door with my coffee in the morning when it's raining and it will not fall on my head.
You won't be wet.
I will not. Not unless I want to be. Yeah. That's super.
Are you going to go full outdoor kitchen?
I already have an outdoor kitchen on the other side, but yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, when I saw your outdoor kitchen, I was like, it won't be as nice as Jack's. It will not have cement countertops, but I'm totally putting a sink outside because that is so much better for events. Right, John?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have an outdoor kitchen to do. I mean, even what you're doing, you have to have an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah, totally. John has a commercial kitchen, though.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a very old commercial kitchen, but we're in the process of having outdoor kitchen. I mean, imagine if you had to run open flame to a pressure can at what the temperature would be if you didn't have electricity or something.
No.
It would be insane.
Yeah.
I don't need it that bad. Yeah, it's got to be outside.
Yeah, outdoor kitchens are the best, especially in summer here. It keeps me from having to cool my house. So anyway, our first bullet point to discuss today is what the actual fuck.
Okay.
What the actual fuck. This is just open. Talk about anything you want to. But, I was actually reflecting 2 years ago when all this shit started. It had been like the foundation for this has been being set for a long time. But when the incident happened that triggered all of the things that we've seen happen in the last 2 years, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Even when we got to the point where we had the 2-week shutdowns, I was like, okay, and then we're going to get over this. Well, here we are, 2 years into 14 days to flatten the curve. And it's a whole lot less about the disease or the illness and a lot more about a lot of other things. We're seeing supply chain disruptions. We're seeing the normalization of bullying as an acceptable behavior. We're seeing all sorts of things. What do you guys think about all that? Or what do you want to talk about on that topic?
I was going to say if John wanted to go first because he's always something to say, but I'll tell you that I'm pretty much done with it. I'm just like, and I think that the three of us maybe are insulated to it to the point where we're probably not as pissed as a lot of other people are because where we live, this isn't us. We don't, like John said, my life's the same as it was before all this shit started, right? But I think it's about time to see pushback. And one of the things I'm seeing right now, and no media will touch, and I talked about it in my podcast today, is the trucker freaking revolt up in Canada, and like when I covered it today, I said, I can't even tell you if what I'm telling you is factual because I don't have a trusted source up there or anything. And no journalists will do their job, but I don't know. I think if this shit keeps going, you're going to see more and more stuff like that. And people starting to realize like, hey, guess what? We have some fucking power, right? Because like, if you think about it, if you want a group of people who are a brotherhood, right? If you think about there's certain professions and industries that are brotherhoods, like soldiers have a brotherhood, right? Trucking is a brotherhood. And once those guys kind of all get together and go, hey, you know what? We could make an impact. They're going to make an impact. And what I heard, and again, it's hearsay, but basically the convoy stretched across 2 provinces. And I don't know if you've looked at a map of Canada, but that's pretty long.
They have big provinces, not like a bunch of tiny states. Yeah.
Now, it's, horizontally, so you're talking this, but I mean, imagine we had a convoy in the U.S. right now that stretched across like Colorado and Kansas.
Yeah.
Heading to D.C. Because that's kind of getting a visual on that long ways, right? Like
it's like those giant Trump rallies you saw.
What's that?
It's like the giant Trump rallies you saw driving down the interstate. And then you saw no media coverage, right? You only saw that on social media as it was live feed. It's the same deal. And the whole trucker thing, they're locking down. So any non-vaxxed US truck driver cannot cross into the border and vice versa. And it's supposed to be with Mexico too, but you're not hearing anything about the Mexico side of it.
Because they're not doing it. Because it's not being enforced. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be that shot heard around the world. It's only going to take a couple of these when they get momentum and they start getting it out there, and they can't block them fast enough because they're just rapidly getting shared. They don't want people to see that because courage is contagious. And it only takes 1 or 2 guys, and you have multiple people in different locations thinking the same thing. And when one acts, more will act. It's like the killdozer thing, like you were saying the other day.
Yeah.
It always ends with 1 death. But if they get 5 of those at the same time, that becomes a dozen, that becomes 100, that becomes 1,000, and it's exponential. And that's why they're building walls, more walls. That's why they're insulating themselves. How does 1% control? Actually, a 1% of 1% controls all the rest of the world, because we're complacent, and comfort breeds complacency. And as soon as you start making people a little less comfort, you wait till that power stops coming on. You wait till that water stops not running, right?
Yeah.
People, that's when the heads roll.
Yeah, a friend of mine was talking about all of the like violent acting out that happened during the Great Depression that is mirroring people just losing their shit and shooting people over bullshit that's happening now, right? Oh, I don't like the color of your soda pop, blam, or beating people up over stupid things. Apparently, there was a big uptick of that during the Great Depression, and I think it is that comfort thing that you're mentioning, John.
Wait till that renters moratorium ends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have people who have squatted basically for 2 years. Wait till they're put on the street.
It's going to happen.
The violence isn't coming. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Robert here is talking about there's the big protests in Europe.
Yeah.
Tons
Nicole
of them.
Just moved it on me. Right.
Sorry,
it's okay. I just want to kind of point out there's a difference here. It's one thing when a bunch of people go out in the street and chant and yell, hold up signs and say, we're not going to take shit anymore. It's a totally different thing when the people that bring your food, your gas, your fuel, all the stuff that you rely on say, we're not driving anymore, and we're going to take these behemoth machines, surround the federal capitol, park them, and tell you to go fuck yourself until you knock this off. There's a level of, it's a passive resistance in a way, but it's also a level of force that doesn't exist. I'm happy when I see 1 million people in Austrian streets screaming and yelling they're done, but they don't really have anything that they can accomplish. But when you start seeing people start to think a little bit more, instead of just going out and chanting and yelling and starting to say, well, what power do we have in exercising that power? I think it's it's like the next level. I'm kind of surprised it took this long.
Well, it's why they're going so hard on the January 6th stuff, right? People who had no arms, people who did no violence, people who were allowed to walk in, but they have to make an example to scare those guys into having second thoughts.
Yep. Yeah, and it's all they got, right? They don't have anything else to talk about other than January 6th, insurrection. And it's like, man, you want to see an insurrection? Truckers shutting down the Capitol, that's an insurrection.
Yeah, that's, let's talk about that a little bit. What is an insurrection? Like people, quote unquote, storming the Capitol, a minor day of some civil disobedience does not an insurrection make.
Well, it's on par with Pearl Harbor, remember?
They used the fact that it was done during the certification of an election with a demand to change the election to say that it was insurrection against the new government. Right. They're trying to walk a technical line there. And unfortunately, There's like half the people in this country that if it's anti-Trump, right, or anti-right, will believe it. If it's anti-left, no, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, we're literally perfectly divided. Half the freaking morons in this country will just go, yep, whatever they're told if it's about the other side. And then there's about half of the side that you would think wouldn't, like that's on that side, that are so gullible that if the TV says it enough times, they'll even believe it about their own side. And then you got the mushy middle. They don't know what to believe. And then you got a bunch of people who are politically agnostic. They just want to be left alone. And I'm telling you, so people that want to be left alone, that when those motherfuckers realize they're never going to leave you alone, that's when shit's really going to get nasty. Like the people that play the political game, they always have faith in the next election cycle. The people that have lost faith in the election cycle, that have said, you know what, do whatever the fuck you want, just leave me alone. I think those people are starting to hit the limit of their shit at this point.
And they are totally. And they are kind of, they've been left alone, right? They've moved out of the cities, they've secluded.
Yeah.
And you need to look at a man willing to do that typically has a certain sort of thing that has happened in the background. Military service training, right? He went out, saw terrible things, made mistakes in his life, saw terrible things, right? And now he's come to peace with those, and he's just tried to raise his family. He wants to raise his family, and he wants to have his grandkids sit on his leg and tell stories when he's 80, 90 years old. And they are keeping that from happening. And they're rapidly messing with the kids. They're rapidly messing with our ability to just be free. And that's all they want. We just want to be free and leave us alone. But they're not happy with that. They're not willing to do that. So they're going to go to the outskirts. Why do they only raid Randy Weaver? Why do they only raid the Branch Davidians, right? Because there's eyeballs, there's camera. They have to do this. These aren't the people they're scared of. That's why they attack these people, to make an example, to make the other up-and-comers think twice, right?
Absolutely, John. You're dead on. It's. Remember Ronald Reagan said, I've seen some comments that are about, like Trump's not a messiah or whatever. I'm not sporting any politician, but I will quote them when they're right. Reagan said no nation was ever attacked for being seen as too strong. And I would put it down to no individual's ever been attacked for being perceived as too strong. They don't do that. They look for the person that they not only can defeat as far as the use of force, but the person they can defeat in the court of public opinion. This guy's a white supremacist and an extremist, and he's selling illegal weapons. And, Weaver's biggest mistake was he was dumb enough to fall for a guy that claimed that he needed him to cut the barrel of a shotgun off, right? He should have handed him a fucking hacksaw and been done with it. But they would have done something. They would have found a reason to do that particular thing anyway, because they knew they could paint this picture of this guy that's dangerous. He has his kids with him. They're up on a mountain. And then that they could quell resistance. Like I said, it's kind of hard to do that when it's 10,000 truckers.
It's just it's further and further division. And the guys that say, every time I say F Biden, right? I say it as a joke, and I use the hashtag MAGA and Trump because it draws the eyeballs. But they come in, they mistake because I say F Biden that I'm for Trump. See, they don't care what side you're on as long as you're on a side. The football team owners own the stadium. They don't care which team you're there for. You're in the stadium, and the shirts, the jerseys are all made by the same company. See, we're not on either team. That's what you guys are mistaken. You are so easily divided that you don't realize that we're not either side. And that's what they're worried about, because we're not. It's a puppet show. You notice how these fucking guys, these people, Ted Cruz, he's going to be the Democrat next, right? He's not Hulk Hogan. It's not his turn to be the good guy now. He has to go. It is the World Wrestling Federation. And when you realize that and you quit worrying about what side they're representing, I don't need to represent either side. I represent my side. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing big things, show up and be a part of them. And it's contagious. Stop getting caught in that whole mess, because I see the Trump stuff in the comments, and I see it just spurred that.
Yeah, Trump's not the Messiah. Who the fuck here said he was, right? Like,
no.
But I'll tell you what makes people more pissed off than being on the other side, not being on any side. If the person's still in that system of picking a side and you pick the other side, they'll argue with you, right? It's like two monkeys yelling at each other. When you say, I'm not picking a side, that's when the monkeys start flinging shit at each other, right? Like, you can do anything you want as long as you play the game. And that tells you that we've been conditioned to believe that. Why the hell else would we have, mock elections for second graders? I remember the first time I ever voted for a president of the United States. I was in Catholic school in second grade. No, I was in second, maybe first grade. I voted whatever year it was. I voted for fucking Ronald Reagan. Like, I knew what the hell that meant. All I knew is that everybody hated Carter, right? Why would you condition a child at that age to think it's their duty to vote and put them through the pantomime of a false election in a school that means absolutely nothing? And it actually caused kids to argue with each other because my daddy says this and my mommy says that. And, you're in a Catholic church, 1980s teachers, they were all Democrats. So it really bothered them when, it was 95% Reagan. I do remember that as long ago as well. But why would you do that? Unless you're trying to convince people it's important to be in this game. And John, you hit it down, bro. I mean, if that wasn't the thing, then that wouldn't be what they push above all else.
It's indoctrination. Democrats don't have kids. They have your kids, right? It's indoctrination. The school system we use now, the government indoctrination system, came from a Prussian system, which was designed to indoctrinate kids to move with a belt, to be factory workers in the war movement, right? It was designed to program kids how to move. And I think Jack's shown it better than anybody. He has the most eyes, right? Kids don't need this system anymore. I am amazed at the people that I talk to now that are like, my kids don't go to school. My kids are ahead of the school program. My kids do online schooling. My kids do homeschooling, whatever you want to call it. Everybody that's so held up on, I can't do homeschooling. Well, that's because you have free babysitting. What you mean is you're not willing to give up that free babysitter, right? Because then you can't go to Walmart in your footy pajamas during business hours because your kids are home. So you don't have to do that, right? Design your life in some. My kids have grown up. I spent more time with my kids probably than anybody has ever spent. My kids were with me 24 hours. I don't trust people to take care of my dogs when I'm gone, much less my children. So my kids were always with me. One of them's still here right now working. He's 23 years old. And it's easy. We sit them in front of a computer. You're able to see what's going on. We tried the local school system, online schooling, and that was an absolute disaster. There were dudes in there dressed completely inappropriate for school. You would hear things as you're walking past. You're like, what the fuck? I'll grab that guy's fucking neck. It's insane how they speak to your kids. If you think it's a public school, go try to swing on the swing set. Better yet, go try to just sit in your kid's class. You can't do that. Why are there not cameras in the classrooms? Because they don't want you to know what they're saying to your kids.
No, Malcolm X said only a fool would let his enemy educate his children. And
but we're so racist. We're more than willing to,
quote Malcolm X.
Quote Malcolm X.
Yeah, that's how white supremacists we are, that we quote Malcolm X.
I've never been called a racist by a black man. I've only been called a racist by a guy in skinny jeans wearing his sister's pants.
I was going to say a petulant, spoiled white child are the only people that have ever referred to me as a racist. And it's very telling. And you're dead on with the whole school system thing. And what I tell people, though, is when they say, well, I wish I could or I can't, have you fucking asked yourself the question, how can I? If you haven't done that, then shut up and don't tell me that you can't. Now, if you go through that exercise and you legitimately can't, I don't live another man's life. I don't know. But I know very few people who really turned on the mental computer, made the request of the brain, solve for X. How do I homeschool my children that don't come up with an answer? And I'm sick of fucking hearing this shit about distance learning doesn't work. I need to video my grandkids that we have here every day doing their online learning, happy, talking to their teachers, doing really great, getting excellent freaking grades. No, your school system is shit. And when they put it online, you just saw it. It's not a flaw in the model of learning. How can major corporations all over the world settle multi-million-dollar deals with a Zoom call or a StreamYard call or educate people like we're doing right now? And that all fucking works. How can that be the case? How can people coordinate their activities across the fucking globe and build software that becomes a multi-billion-dollar company and that works, but you can't educate a 10-year-old across a computer? If you can't do that, it's not because the technology sucks. You're a shitty teacher and you're in a shitty system.
Yeah, I had the good fortune.
When I say that, fuck off. It's true.
I had the good fortune of seeing 2 school districts in this digital learning time. And one of them, they were great. They knew how to do like separate rooms and have group work going on. And she would keep the attention of the kids. It's both grade school. The other one would come on and say, do your worksheet. We'll check back in an hour. That was it.
That's the difference between a 25-year-old, 30-year-old teacher and a 50-year-old teacher. They have no idea how to do the technology. They're there because they've been there, just like our government, right? They're there because they've been there. And back to like Jack just said, it's literally like poverty mindset, right? It's not, I can't afford this. You simply didn't say, how can I afford this? And it might just be super as simple as the universe. When you say I can't, the universe gives you more can't. What if it really is that simple? Because in your head, if you start talking like that, how can I afford this? I want to do this. How can I get it? You will be amazed at what you're able to do.
I really think it is the universe, John. 100%.
Universe, God, religion, whatever you need to call it.
People tell me that it's not as simple as changing my perspective. But if I change from I have to go to work to I get to go to work, and I acknowledge that while I'm working a job I don't love, I am working a job and they're paying me, and that enables me to do other things. It changes my attitude about what I do when I'm not at the job. And if my goal is to not have that job, I need that money to get started and then get started.
This came from Jack, right? I've heard a lot of guys say this, right? Andy Frisella talks about it a lot. You got a little kid and he's at the tire store, right? Back in the 80s, 70s, whatever. And he's sitting on the bench with his uncle and his dad, and a nice car pulls up. Nice Ferrari pulls up. And the kid's just enamored with this, right? And dad or uncle's like, must be nice. And the other one's like, yeah, he probably stole that money. You program that kid right then at age 7 for failure. Whereas if you instead said, hey, walk up there and see if you can look at the car. You can own a car like that someday. You just have to work. And here's the thing. And you just set that kid on it. Literally, it's the difference between pushing the left shoulder and the right shoulder. A year down the road, you still see each other. But 1 second separation is a complete different path. And it's literally setting that mindset. You planted that seed and you poisoned that kid.
Have you ever noticed that everybody that's out being successful, getting shit done, making money, building a business, building a community says the same fucking thing?
Yeah.
That it's your perspective and your intent and asking how. Everybody successful says the same fucking thing, but everybody that's fucking not trying and failing and miserable says it doesn't work. Now, that's not about me being smart or John being smart or Nicole being smart. That's just like, you might want to fucking listen to the people who have actually been successful instead of the people who haven't been successful telling you what will never make you successful. I agree that they're pretty much an expert on not being successful. Right? That's what they are. They're experts on being a fucking failure. I loved your post the other day on MeWe, dude. I think it was yesterday. It was like the wallets, and you're like, when you stop being poor, you may need this to carry around like credit cards and ID and money or something like that. I was like,
I use that because people that don't know us will comment on it, right? They want to fight about it. When you get around highly successful people, you get in the same room and shake hands with them, you'll find that you're not competing with them. When you tell your friend who has some beat-ass Camaro, right, I'm going to buy a Ferrari. I always use the Ferrari because young kids know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a Ferrari. Your friend with the beat-ass Camaro will be like, he'll tell you all the reasons you're not going to do that, right? When you get around a dude that owns 3 Ferraris and you say you want a Ferrari, he will help you buy it. There's just a mystery to it. You don't realize how to have it. He's going to help you get it. You just have to be around better people.
Yeah, every time you're around somebody more successful than you and you're like, wow, they're doing something I wish I could do, the best thing you can do is say, like, how'd you do that?
How'd you do that?
How'd you do that? Because most people are totally willing to share that information, and they'd like to see you have that too, if that's what you want.
Well, they're not just okay with sharing. They want to share it with people that will listen. Like, I will have people come to me and ask me how to do something, and I'll give them step 1, maybe step 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I won't say a fucking thing until they did those things. Right. I have a limited amount of time and fucking mental energy. I work my ass off. You know, being a podcaster seems like a pretty easy gig. If you're going to do it professionally, it's a lot of work. You know, and so I only have so much time. So when somebody asks for my help, I will give it. But until I know they're going to act on the first step, they're not getting the next one. And it's like people want like a magic fucking, you know, talisman or something that will just make them successful. And it's because they look at people that are successful and it always looks like that person became successful overnight. And they don't see the grueling fucking grind that led to that success, right?
John Willis's 4 a.m. videos are helping dispel that myth.
Yeah. They also don't see the ongoing grind right? Because once you're successful, like then everybody's shooting at you, trying to take your spot, trying to become who you are. Like you said, when you get a group of people together, they're not competing, but the natural space of the market is there's somebody trying to be that next big podcaster. There's somebody trying to be that next big thing in tactical equipment. I went to SHOT Show years and years ago. It was a freaking fiasco, but there were thousands of booths selling the kind of stuff that John's selling. None of it was as good as far as quality, but there were thousands of people out there trying to market and be, that person in that space. And you can get to the top, and you're not going to stay there without continuing to pound. So they don't see any of that shit. They just see the success. Then they envy the success. They're not willing to do the work to get to the success. And I know we're supposed to be talking about the state of the world, but that's why we're so fucked up. Because we don't teach that.
That is the state of the world, Jack.
That is the state of the world.
The state of the world is we've forgotten how to work for our success. And we have this notion that success comes to you if you follow a template of going to school and then college and then getting a job and working that job and working your way up in that job. And in order to get that job to begin with, you need to go into debt in the form of student loans, which puts you out of college with a mortgage payment out of the chute, and you still got to pay rent.
Mortgage payment without a house.
Without a house, yeah. And I went to college, so but that's the problem, and then we're entitled to wealth because we did the template. And what people are finding out is the template didn't work. And then they double down on it, right? They double down on that. Yeah. Because they had to do it. You have to do it too.
If otherwise, you just forgave my student loans, I'd be successful tomorrow.
Right.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't.
I've got a 15-year-old kid out here, and we go up and feed all the animals. I've got tons of animals here. So we go up and feed all the animals, and I make him move the feed bag so I don't have to. My shoulder's messed up. So every day he puts the feed bag in, and he'll put it in backwards. And I'm like, finally today, after I was like, look, man, I've showed you this literally 5 times. I go, you have to do these because you can only unzip the bag from the right side, and it has to be the front side. I go, you see me making you do something that is inane or silly or just to be an asshole. I go, I need to know that when I turn around, you're going to do it exactly how I showed you to before I can give you something more important to do. There's all kinds of toys here, and you can damage a lot of stuff with these toys, or you can damage the razors or the 4-wheelers or the tractors. I mean, I got equipment here that we could literally accidentally drive through the building with, just demolish it. If you can't do the simplest things, if I can't trust you to do what I said while I'm standing next to you, I definitely can't trust you to do them when I'm not here and give you something more important. But nobody ever tells people, hey, move with urgency, hurry up. If you got to act like what you're doing is important, because if you don't, it's not going to be important. And if it's not important enough for you to do it, why are you doing it, right? If it's not important, why are you wasting your time on it? And if you're doing it, how come you're not doing it as though it's important? Inky Johnson says, the way you do what you do, he says, I can't remember what he says. Go ahead. The way you view what you do is how you do what you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And nobody says that to these kids. They sit you in school, you move with a bell, and it's literally like they are just downplaying them, right? They're literally turning their potential down, because they need them sucked into that system to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. A teacher never wants to know that a 13, 14-year-old kid is smarter than them, and they're a teacher and they're stuck in the teaching system. There's some great teachers.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't. No. Most of them are not. And you've got a 40, 50-year-old person who made a life choice that they hate. And they don't want a kid to be more successful than them at half their age.
No, they don't. And I'll tell you, some of them are good teachers. I had some good teachers, but I got really good grades in school, but I never worked hard. I never studied. I didn't do half my fucking homework because I did the math and figured out how much I could not do and still get an A, right? Like it was like, I figured out like I could like slack off in one semester and get a C, get 3 A's and get an A final average. And that's all that mattered. So I learned to game the system. And I had a friend one time who was working really hard. This kid wanted to go to college bad. And he was like, how do you do so well doing so little? And I'm like, well, it's not hard. They give us all the answers before they give us the test. And they give us a whole bunch of bullshit around the answers. I only pay attention to the answers. I don't pay attention to the bullshit. I only do a project if it actually affects my fucking grade. I only do the things that matter. I don't do any of the other stuff, and I don't worry about it because we're never going to have to care. And he believed me, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't cross that threshold. He couldn't let go of all the superfluous shit. I'm like, literally, we had one class. It's like, there's the fucking questions that are at the end of the chapter. They're always the ones she puts on the fucking test. Learn those fucking 20 questions, pass the fucking test, and ignore her. But there's so much conditioning, people can't think that way. You know, I had a class, I was like, if you read the first and last sentence of every paragraph in the textbook, you'll pass every fucking test. Couldn't do it. People could not accept that it could possibly be that. It was insane. And it still is. And I'm sure it's worse now. That was the 80s.
Yeah. Well, Jack, though, that is a unique thing about you. And it's why that's one of your secret powers in being a successful entrepreneur is you waste zero energy on anything that isn't moving you towards your goals, whether that's a monetary goal or some other goal. I've seen you talking to somebody. John does this too. I've seen you talking to somebody and it's obvious that this is going down the wrong road. And you're like, okay, bye.
Hey, you met this person?
And you're not polite about it. You're not an ass. Well, sometimes you are, but you're not an ass. You're gone. This is not getting me anything.
You're stupid. I'm just like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
I mean,
John does that too.
Because you got to look at everything like wireless charging, right? I can take a 50% person, and when I'm at 100, and I can get next to them and charge them up to 75, but it draws me to 75. You can only do that so many times till my battery builds a memory, and I won't operate at 100 anymore. And I want to operate at 150. Everywhere I go, I move quickly. I'm constantly moving. People next to me will move faster while I'm there. And then I'll leave and I'll come back. I'm like, when I stand here, you move faster. You have demonstrated your ability to move faster. That is your minimum. You want to have a job with me? You want to be my apprentice or protege or whatever? We don't ever get to the protege apprentice part because as soon as I turn away, you stop, right? If you act like what you're doing is important and do it with urgency, I will give you more work. With more work comes more money. But you have to do like I do. People are like, hey, I want to come hang out. I'm like, I don't fucking hang out. You want to come 9 to 5? That's when the gates are open. You're going to chase me around. Like, I'm not going to stop. You want to have a conversation with me where I sit down and actually have a drink maybe? That happens once a year at our parties. That's the only time that happens. And it's usually the Friday before the party. We have a little pre-party. And that's the only time. Like, literally 18 hours. I sleep 4.5 hours a night most nights. I go to bed at 12. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. People think that's a joke or something. Like, that's real. And when I'm out here by myself, I move quickly. Everything I do, I try to jam the most I can. I'm 50 years old. No matter how you look at it, I'm on the downhill side of the best years of my life. I have a lot of shit to do and I don't have as much time. And if I could go back to 20-year-old self, I would tell myself, do everything you do as though it's important. And if it's not, don't do it. You don't have time for it.
Hey, I want to shout out the Cook Club here. I'm washing dishes, making $15 an hour as we speak, but my bank account is looking nice. I think the other issue we have is people have too much pride attached to what their job is. Sometimes if you just need to go dig holes to make money, which Ken posted earlier, he's digging holes outside. Dig holes. There's no shame in digging holes or washing dishes or any of these things that need to be done.
The Kook Club has a good Instagram channel. He makes very funny skits.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know how to monetize it. He makes funny skits. He just needs to know how to work his Instagram to get it to go out viral. And then he needs a call to action so he can monetize in some manner, because he should be making so much money off his social media shit and have a brand where he can sell co-branded merchandise that he doesn't have to do dishes. And my advice would be still do dishes.
Yeah.
Still do the dishes. Don't, it amazes me now. Like I talked to the manager of one of my favorite restaurants. He said they're paying $16 an hour for dishwashers.
Yeah.
Can't get people.
Joshua Winnie commenting there. That was my chef. Worked here for years. He came here with multiple sclerosis. You would not know it to watch him. Like, I would want to go hang out with him when he started working, and I'd go looking around for him. And I know he thinks it's because I was checking on him. I just wanted to be where he was because he had an energy that made me better. And I'd go out and I'd find him in the feed house in 90-degree weather, which is terrible for MS. And he's organizing the feed house. He's organizing the lean-to. And he worked for, I think he was here maybe 3 years. I miss him terribly. Best dude I have ever been around. Like, he just has something. And for all the people complaining, you have no idea how bad things are until you're around somebody with a disease like that, and they tell you can't cure it. And I watch him go take all these experimental things, and sometimes he'd be a little better, and then it would just decline. But that dude right now he's in a wheelchair, and he does more stuff than most people that I even come in contact with on a daily basis that are pissing and moaning. And I've never heard that dude complain one single time.
I think we all are fortunate that we know people like that in our lives, you know, big time. And you said you don't hang out, but you do hang out. Who you hang out with, though, is people that pull you up. That's who you'll take time to hang out with. And people think that's fucking elitist. It's not. It's, I don't want to hang out with you if you're going to drag me down. I might even mentor you a little bit, but like I said, you got to do something with it, and you got to come up a level, and then we can work a little bit more, and then you can earn it. And what you really hit on, John, is, and this is something I've said we have a problem with in our country, and you can look to other countries that still have this ethic and see how bad it is. So, like, if you want to be something like a master sushi chef in Japan, I think it's like 2 years before you get to touch a fucking fish. Right? And then when you get to touch the fish, that means you get to go out to the truck and bring the fish in and put it on the ice. And that's it. That's like you spend your first year fucking with rice and maybe cutting some seaweed. That's all you get to do. And then in 10 years, you're this master. And that's to become a sushi chef. And people would say, well, you don't even have that opportunity in the United States. Go fuck yourself. Yes, you do. And we just talked about like going to a restaurant and washing dishes for $16 an hour. I know freaking high-end executive chefs, never went to fucking culinary school. How'd you get started? Washing dishes in a restaurant, right? Yep. Like, so there is a path, but people won't take it. And if you don't think an executive chef at a good restaurant makes good money, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I know a bartender at a place that most of the people, little bitch, will never be able to afford to go to buy a steak. And the head bartender at that place makes about $200,000 a year. The fucking bartender's making double six figures, and you're bitching, but you won't take the first steps. There's so much of that in our society today. I didn't know that's what we talk about, but it's part of all this shit. Because if we didn't have people like this, all this other fucking crap wouldn't be happening, because people that think like this wouldn't let this shit fucking happen.
You want to see how successful somebody's going to be. You look at their three closest people that they spend the most time with, and it's just how it is. It's contagious. Everybody's contagious. You're going to catch something from somebody. You better make sure that you want what you're about to catch, because you're going to get something from everybody you spend more than 5 minutes from.
Yep.
Have y'all ever been around somebody that you had to be around, and when you're done, like you were talking about the drained battery thing, you don't just feel drained, you feel totally fucking drained, and you almost feel like there's like, you didn't get dirty, but you feel like you got to go take a fucking shower.
You feel poisoned.
Like I got to do something to reinvent. Like there's literally like a stink or like a slime or a sticky substance on my body now because I hung out with this motherfucker that was like an Eeyore from Winnie the fucking Pooh for like an hour and a half. Like I had a buddy, I was trying to pull him out of a really dark spot. I ended up spending a weekend with this guy, and I was ready to eat a fucking bullet at the end of that weekend. Like,
yeah, that's called energy vampire, Jack.
Somebody said that here, yeah, and it's fucking awful. It's fucking awful. Now imagine that you are that person, and you're surrounded by nothing but other motherfuckers like that.
Yeah, not good.
And then I have some sympathy for people because like that's all they've ever known. Like John said, that one kid who said, wow, that car's nice, and his dad says, or his uncle says, must be nice. That kid just got mentally fucked. And it takes a lot to pull yourself out of that. I've been amazed how people will tell me, and I'm sure John has heard this too, like, you know, you're the first strong male role model I've had in my life, and you're like a father figure to them. Like, how the fuck is some motherfucker on a podcast or a video your father figure? I'm not putting that person down. I'm just saying, like, how fucked up is a country where that's a normal thing? You know, it boggles my mind. And like, my parents sucked. I'll say it. I don't know that I've ever looked at somebody that way. And so there was still I think there was just still something in our generation. John, you said you're 50. I'm about to be 50. I know Nicole's, I don't tell a woman's age. She's very close to my age.
Really close.
I think we're in that generation that like that 80s latchkey, take care of yourself generation. And I think we personally, but our generation might be partly because of this. I think a lot of people our age over fucking compensated with their kids. Like, since we were alone, we made sure they were never alone. So they never learned how to handle things. Now we've got grandchildren, you know, in our lives. And man, we've created this, the cycle was created and we were part of it, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I think our parents started reacting by working hard to get us the stuff they didn't have. So the boomers, right? And then we overcompensated in helicopter parenting. And that it's really interesting to watch as a latchkey kid, which I think you were too, Jack. I don't know about you, John. I was a latchkey kid. I love being alone. I know how to be alone. I know how to solve problems when stuff goes wrong that I shouldn't know anything about, because I know how to figure it out because things happened when I was home alone. And then you watch kids now that can't be left home alone for 2 hours between school and parents getting home for fear of lighting the house on fire or any other number of things that can happen. And they're teenagers. It's like teenagers should be able to handle that. Like, they're not that far from being 18 and an adult.
Well, when I was a kid, 14-year-old girls, their number one job was they were babysitters.
Yeah.
Right? Now, 14-year-old, you leave a 14-year-old alone, somebody's calling fucking CPS. Latchkey kid was our generation, Nicole. I wasn't really a latchkey kid because I didn't go home and lock the door. We just didn't fucking go home after school. We were out in the woods. We were hanging out. Like, once we got a car, we were going up the mountain. Like, we just went out and, like, were people and did things and worked shit out amongst ourselves. Like, we were smart enough to know, like, we all knew somebody whose brother fucking died in a car wreck and go, like, if we're going to score some booze and go drink, we need one motherfucker not to drink, or we need to take our fucking tents and we need to stay there for the night. No one told us that. We didn't. The video they showed you in school in defensive driving where the family goes over the hill singing the fucking song, that's not why we did that. We did that because we realized that our actions had consequences. And I'm not saying we're better. I'm just saying that was when we couldn't vent our frustrations to people who would commiserate with us on Instagram or Facebook that would tell us we're right. And we had people right next to us that say, hey, motherfucker, if y'all want to be with us, you got to do something. And I think that, like, technology is great. It's also fucked people up because no matter what neurosis you have, you will find a million people online that will tell you that you're special because of it. And it's a good thing. No matter what.
Negative. Yeah, the negative. When I was 13, I rode a bus for 90 minutes to work at McDonald's in a legal job at 13 in San Diego. My grandfather got me a job. It's 15 and a half, 16 now to have a legal job. When I was 15, I had a Honda XL 175 motorcycle. Long story, but our fun after school was to ride that fast enough before the police found us because we didn't have a license for it. Go out in the canyon and get the shore patrol, the Navy police, to chase us. We didn't cause any problems. It was just playing tag with these guys. The helicopter would come out and literally blow you over off the motorcycle, and you'd get up, shake it off, and the helicopter pilot was having as much fun as, I don't know how we never got killed.
Yeah,
from the rotors being so
good
close.
pilot.
But that was just normal shit, right? And we weren't lighting our house on fire because somebody in our life took us outside and showed us as a kid how to light a real fire, right? People don't do that anymore. There's no father figure. Mom's working 2 jobs just to keep the roof over the head. And the kids grow up with themselves, and they grow up, unfortunately, it's not with themselves. They grow up with retards online, and they get sucked into they're in these video game chat groups talking to people, and you've got little girls talking to other little boys who turn out to be 50-year-old men. There's no oversight and there's no control. We don't show them anything. Now you walk into a restaurant and you notice there's no screaming toddler anymore because there's a fucking iPad in their hands. Every person at the table, Amanda and I do it too. Amanda and I are together almost 24 hours a day. We go out of town on the weekend. We're in a truck for 90 minutes. We get in a restaurant. She's on the phone. I'm on the phone. I know people look at us. They're like, look at those idiots. That's fucking money. Like, we're together 24 hours a day. But I see it, man. Everywhere you go, there's a pacifier in everybody's face now.
Yeah,
there's no control. I mean, all the children abduction. They got kids there. I know people recovering children right now, and they've recovered the same kids from sex rings literally 3 times. They go back into a foster parent who's getting paid, huge foster parents making more money than we make for keeping kids they hate, and they sell them back into the system. There is no aftercare for that. Grindstone Ministries, we'll talk about Bear for a second. Grindstone Ministries has built a program called Caleb House, and they're building homes that take these children and rehabilitate them. They teach them life skills and find them jobs and put them back into the community. They love on them and just protect them. So, I mean, there are people doing it, but there's a whole bunch of door kickers who are bored, ex-SEALs and SF dudes. I know some of these guys Tony Robbins put $7 million behind one of them when he saw the kids they recovered. And they're grabbing these kids, but where do they go after?
They got to put them somewhere, yeah.
They got to go
and the
somewhere.
fact that it's even happening. And where do they get them? Off your pacifier. Your babysitter's where they're meeting them.
Yeah, and it's bad, man. I mean, I guess you call him my nephew-in-law, my niece's husband, right? He was on a task force for 2 years, federal task force, going after and finding and recovering these kids. And these, like, some of them, like, they're kids when they're taken, but they're 19, 20 years old by the time you get them out. And he said the hardest thing they had wasn't finding them and getting them back. It was getting their cooperation and making sure the motherfuckers that did it went to prison, because they were so fucked up emotionally. They were either afraid to talk, or they had actually gotten into kind of the Stockholm mode where they had identified with their captors and only they cared about them. And, you know, they would say things like, they always told me that you'd come take me away from them. Right. So if you're not helping that person rehabilitate, and I don't mean rehabilitate because they were bad, but because they were damaged.
Yeah.
Imagine if we took somebody and their legs were all smashed, and we brought them, we gave them basic life-saving care and said, okay, go ahead. Right. Now, how's that person going to learn to walk again without physical therapy? They're not. And that's what we're doing to these kids. We get them out of that situation and we put them in a place where there's no coping, you know, capability whatsoever. They haven't learned how to be adults a lot of times. And when if you get them out when they're like right at the crux or just over 18, well, then there's nothing for them once. Okay, now you're safe. Bye.
Here you go.
Yeah.
And that's a problem in foster homes too, by the way. These kids go to foster homes. The ones that do get through it, they turn 18 years old. They have no life skills, no family.
There's a retreat just across the lake from me that takes kids who are foster care and gives them a job for several years to teach them and it's got, you know, hotel maintenance or all of that. That's their whole focus, because they know that that's a problem. Because what are you going to do at 18? You have nothing. When I was 18 and it was time for me to be on my own, I had a support system in the form of mom and dad. They helped me figure out how to rent a place. They helped me, you know, with a lot of things as I did that transition. And I've always been thankful for that. They didn't let me stay in the house without paying rent forever. They just were like, okay, you need to get out and do your thing.
How messed up is the system that if you've identified these people and eliminated them, right? They would spend more money and a task force to find the person killing pedophiles than they would to capture pedophiles. They capture them. And the reason behind that is because they are so commingled. They use the services. Your elite people, how many times have you seen these people? CNN, perfect example. 3 main producers at CNN. What you didn't hear, right? So this lady charges Chris Cuomo's producer $3,000 to have sex with her 9-year-old and her 13-year-old, which happens. They have the text messages. They just busted this out 90 days ago, maybe, right? Everybody heard about this. Do you know what they didn't tell you? Mom has been in custody on charges, already arrested in federal prison for 24 months. So that means she went through trial for probably a year. For 3 years now, mom's been out of the system, and they're just now arresting this dude.
Yeah. And the other way to look at this too is the money that has to be behind it for it to be what it is. So, because we have this domestic abuse of parents actually pimping out their own kids, and that person needs a bullet. I'm sorry. We have the kids that are taken off the street or out of foster domestically. We also have this massive importation of children that go into the sex trade and trafficking. And that's all, like, it's not oversold, folks that maybe doubt it. It's that bad. Okay, but then when you see a Criminal Minds episode or something, and there's a pedophile that the FBI is going to go get, he's always some pervert that's really weird, that's all by himself, that lives in a trailer, that's like 87 years old and barely held together with duct tape in the middle of the woods. That motherfucker doesn't have any money, right? If that was your typical pedophile, we wouldn't have an industry. We'd have individual abductions, which would be a lot easier to handle instead of a network. If you have a network, you have money, which means the people that are doing this are affluent and wealthy motherfuckers that drive these networks. I'm sure the peripheral stuff happens. And if you notice, that's always who gets hit. They always bust the low-level, low-life scumbag. But there's money driving this, and that's why nothing is going to be done about it by your government, because it doesn't behoove them to do it. And if you start pulling that thread, I can only imagine how many of those motherfuckers are in high-level bureaucratic positions, high-level elected positions, high-level media positions. And if you get enough of them, you know what happens. If they don't get suicided, right?
They're funded by, like, those rings are funded by tax dollars. They're funded by tax dollars in the form of block grants that come in for projects. And then they build the project, and then they have parties at the project. It doesn't happen with every block grant, right? But I know an example where it did, where prostitutes were brought in for parties, and it got exposed. It was local officials. Boom. Did anything get done about that? Not really. Like the person who was, it's always one of those, you know, multiple initial organizations that are appointed, not elected.
Yep.
Managing that. And then they work with all the local public officials to get everything through, to look the other way. And then that's how the parties happen.
Jack,
there are NGOs, non-governmental organizations supported with government grants who exist to help orphans, who import orphans into the United States into the sex trade. And some of them have been caught. I mean,
just look up rape tree, right? You're not allowed to say that first word on YouTube. They will remove videos about this. Isn't it a trip that they will remove videos about that topic? But if you search that topic, you will find all these photos and all these interviews where they literally tie children up, and the coyotes use them as they're crossing the border. They're waiting there, right? And it's absolutely insane that you can't talk about it, because they're trying to hide all of that. It's insane. And then you have something else that, just in case you don't know, you have groups of dudes sitting in parking lots right now at Walmart. And when your wife goes to the Walmart with your kids or picks your kids up, they're putting Google sensors, right? They're putting the little RFID tags on the cars. Well, Google, the Apple Air thing has a little glitch in it that they didn't anticipate, in that if you have an Apple phone, it will send a notification after 12 hours or something and notify your phone that your AirPod is sitting out in front of your house, right? So you go try to find it, you can't. You call the police find it. They're following your wife home, and when she's not looking, they're grabbing kids. Millions of kids go missing in the United States. There's videos of people just coming up in vans while mom's at Starbucks or Einstein Bagels and literally try to grab the little girl up over the railing. It happens every single day.
It does happen. Do you remember the lady that somebody tried to grab her kid in like a Family Dollar or something like that? She's a pretty heavy set lady, and she just wrapped her arms around the kid and just laid on the ground and went dead weight. And then the guy got out the door, but there was like a retired Marine out there that beat the fucking snot out of him. For all I know, they charged the guy for assault for beating the fuck out of the guy.
And that's just it. When you defend your life and your family's life, they don't punish the bad guy. They punish you.
Yeah, they put a dude in it was in England a few years ago. He comes home. There's a guy actively raping his daughter in his house. And you know, we're in America, so we think baseball bat. They have cricket bats, which you don't want to get hit by either. This guy had a cricket bat on his wall. He took the cricket bat off the wall, and he went to town on this motherfucker. Beat the shit out of him. Didn't kill him. Called up the fucking police. Police came out and arrested him for excessive assault. Yep. Caught the fucker in the act of raping his daughter. If it would have been me, there would have been no phone calls, and there would have been a very quickly filled in hole. Like, I know how a backhoe works.
Jack, you need pigs.
It's the same
thing. Pigs will do it. Don't let nobody tell you they won't.
all the riots we just had, people that defended themselves were arrested. They didn't stop any of the rioters.
No. People that didn't even do anything were arrested. That couple in Missouri, all they did was stand out in front of their property and point their weapons at this aggressive pile of assholes who had already fucked a bunch of shit up. It wasn't like they were just marching down the street and they did it. They had actively destroyed other property, and they basically like, if you come here, we're going to shoot you.
Yeah. And
they were arrested. They were charged with way beyond what they were ever going to be convicted. Then they had to plead out to get it to go away. And they were basically, the charge that they got to stick was they pointed the weapons at them. So
are they prohibited now? Can they still own firearms? Or are they
no, the dude bought an AR on the way home from when he pled out because it was a misdemeanor.
Perfect.
He was a lawyer. He knew his
Yes,
shit.
yeah.
So when they said you can plead out at this, he's like, okay, so that doesn't actually affect my fucking life. And I think the governor of Missouri had already pre-agreed, if they convict you on anything, I'm going to freaking give you a pardon anyway. Yeah.
This is where all the buildings and businesses were burned down. So they went through, and you had to apply for a permit. So your house, your business is destroyed, right? So you have a bunch of rubble and shit. Before you can remove it and start to rebuild, to remove and clean the property, you have to apply for a permit. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't have a permit because you haven't paid your back property taxes for the last 18 months because you were closed down. So most of those people had nothing left, and now the city has eminent domained those properties.
Wow.
Which is by design. I mean, you talk about, we used to make fun of these guys at Agenda 21 and call them tinfoil hat until every single piece of it happened, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Alex Jones, as crazy as he is, most of what he said came to pass.
That's actually why you need to fight. The one thing you need to fight locally, if you're not going to fight anything else, is zoning and land use planning. All of those plans, like Vision 2030, Vision 2040, that you do not want that in your county. That is what sets the foundation for your property being stolen from you.
There's a bunch of code words around that.
Deborah said that she sees dudes in parking lots and kind of drives slow by them. Deborah, take your phone out and start videotaping their car. I do that all the time when somebody's in a weird, like acting weird, and they'll skedaddle out of there.
Do you remember the blonde lady, Rosa Corey, I think was her name? She used to talk about Agenda 21 all the time. She was a housing, a development planner out of like California. You know, she died. She died like a month or so, a year ago. And a lot of people were saying she was completely healthy. She wasn't going to suicide herself. Like she felt, same thing with the Cappy guy, right? He's making videos. He's like, I'm not going to kill myself. So if you find me jumped off a bridge, they did it, you know? That
jumped off a bridge.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know she died.
Yeah, I didn't either. I literally brought her up a couple days ago and they said, yeah, she died.
Yeah. Jack, we're about to wrap up. Do you want me just to wrap up?
We can, or I just need a second. I'll be right back.
What do you think, John?
We can keep going, whatever.
Okay.
It's up to y'all. You tell me.
John and I will keep going, and I just don't want to abuse time.
I'll be back 40 seconds.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so John, if you listen to Jack's thing on the apocalypse that's coming.
I've listened to a lot of his stuff. I don't know which one. A couple days ago?
No, he did it a couple weeks ago, and he had this like weathering the coming apocalypse and was framing the apocalypse like it's not the end of the world, second coming of Christ, like people raising up. It's more societies go through big transitions, and it's apocalyptic, and it for some they do lose their livelihood as part of the transition. And he was talking about how we're going through one now.
So the Civil War was terrible for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But a lot of families are multi-billionaires now because of the industry and the things they started during the Civil War. So I guess it depends who you are, where you are, and what opportunity. If you let it crush you, it's going to crush you. If you see and seize the opportunity, maybe you come out the other side better off than. And then there's a lot of people like during Russia and the Holodomor, right, where they just fenced off and starved millions and millions of people. When the USSR collapsed, the rural farmer, he didn't know any different. He still had his little sustenance garden and had a couple chickens, right? It was the people in the city that lost everything. The dude that was out a little more rural, it was just normal life for him.
Yeah, Jack, we're talking about when you were talking about the coming apocalypse a few weeks ago on your podcast.
Yep.
And how you framed that.
Yeah.
So we have one going on right now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are interested in your channel, my channel. They follow John because they're a little scared of this thing happening. And I just thought it'd be good to talk about how that's coming and what people can do. By the way, somebody asked me what my channel was earlier in the comments. Living Free in Tennessee on YouTube. If you want to go there, livingfreeintennessee.com is my website.
So
anyway,
people started buying toilet paper and we started buying fencing. We bought 200 chickens. We bought another 50 ducks. We brought in, I've got 80 rabbits up there right now. We just cross-fenced the back. We're bringing in pigs and goats and sheep. We brought in dogs. We added rear-facing lighting. We secondary redundant camera systems. I brought in a bunch of 3,600 pound concrete barriers to block ingress to the property. And what happened was we never shut down a single day. Like, we just kept working. We had a plan for if they said to shut down, we weren't shutting down. My biggest fear is government, local government. And I don't fear this local government, right? Government's going to be your biggest problem with anything. The guys with the guns willing to kill you under the wrong circumstances. But what I found was we have these parties. We have 900 so people show up here from around the world, just a bonfire, drink beer, shoot machine guns, and listen to live music. And what I found was I kind of did it on the fly. We didn't put any money behind the promotion. We had 250 people show up here, and every one of them said, hey, I've been watching your stuff. Can I see the aquaponics? Can I see the greenhouse? Hey, can I see how you did your fencing? Can I see your 3 million gallon pond? Can I see your water catchment off the roof? So people were hungry for it. And that's when I said, hey, Nicole, maybe we should do one of these things here. So we did one 5 months ago. We have another one on the 19th and 20th. We've got already 3 times more people registered than we did last time. And typically that doubles when they actually show up.
The last 3 weeks of ticket sales is upon us.
So come out and see what I like to say. Success leaves clues, right? And it's a little different, right? How many guys do you follow on social media where you see this little sliver, right? And what you've been led to believe is not what's truly there. When you meet them in person, you're like, I see you working out all the time. I thought you're like an athlete, right? You're like 400 pounds, like you're on a breathing machine. What's going on here? It's the survival fiction, guys, right? There's some great survival fiction, but when you meet them, they're in a fucking rascal scooter. Like, can you do any of the shit you wrote about? So I feel like if somebody asks advice, I should have some evidence that the advice I gave is present. And that's what I love about people coming to see here. Don't think I did it all. I have people here and we're working multiple projects, and it's taken time, but it has evolved. And if you want to see what we're doing, the proof is here. Like, come see it.
Yeah. That's the Self-Reliance Festival on February 19th and 20th. If anybody's interested in that event, it's overnight. Camping is available. You can come on Friday night and camp if you want to. And it's going to be fun. We've got a lot of Dr. Barry is going to be speaking. Unfortunately, Jack is doing something else that weekend in Acapulco,
which we're going to show part of here. You're going to be able to watch that from here too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm planning to stream some stuff from that. And this is all about getting our networks. So the other thing I did want to talk about today, and I'm interested in hearing y'all's thoughts on this, is the network has just become so much more important, but it was always important. When you look at people who are successful, they always know a guy, right? They know a guy for everything. If they need something. And that is your network. And a lot of people have walked away from that. It's something about how our society is built. You can just go to Walmart and get the thing. And that has proven to be not the best approach in the last few years. So what are your thoughts on leveraging communities right now to establish stability just among people?
I think we need to take a blended approach. You have a network, Nicole. John has a network. I have a network of people that, like, they're kind of in the know of the why. But, like, I have a network that's just useful. And I don't mean where you're usurious to them. I mean, just there's a natural symbiosis between you and these other people. I got a guy that's literally 3 houses down the road. He has 117 acres. He runs cattle. I'm not going to run cattle. I just buy a half beef off him every year. And I don't have to worry that I'm not going to be able to, because I've been buying it. I didn't start buying a beef off him because, I want to make sure that, since the shit's hit the fan, I don't run out of beef, because I've been buying beef from him since I found out he did it. I was like, oh, that's easy. I only have 3 acres. There's no way I can run cattle here. There's a guy less than a mile from me that I can do business with. I'm going to do business with him. If he had approached me, or if we had developed a relationship to where he wanted to be more involved in the kinds of stuff we're talking about today, fine. But he's still in my network, even though he doesn't give a shit about any of this, right? And he's not going to have a problem maintaining what he has because of where we live, how we're positioned, how much land he has. And he doesn't sell through the sale barn type model. He only sells direct to his customers. So, and his cows eat grass. So if the soybeans run out, he doesn't give a fuck, right? And that's the type of network you need to build beyond just the people that we have this common ideology with. I'm sure that gentleman and I have a lot of common ideology, but he's not going to listen to my podcast. He's not once even I would let him just come to my workshop or something. He's never asked, and he's never really expressed any interest. So he knows what we do. It's not his thing, but we have that relationship. I have relationships with a lot of my neighbors. I've got comms in place with neighbors across the street beyond the cell phone, right? And I've got people, well armed right over there, like just right there, that are available by a phone call if shit goes down. And we're not like we get together and talk about being a militia or some shit like that. They're not over here. They're not doing aquaponics and hydro like I am or anything like that. It doesn't matter. We have that between us that, hey, we value it. We value freedom and our property rights enough that if there's some shit goes down, we've got it together. We even had a night where the guy over that way got broken into, and all three of us were outside armed with the dogs in about 30 seconds. Right now, the person that was the problem disappeared like a fart in the fucking wind, and I don't blame him. But the fact that you can do that solves so many problems. So many problems is to reach out and have those networks beyond like the survival network or the freedom cell network. Those are great, but don't limit yourself to that. Lead with the relationship with people. That's something like our grandparents. That's how their networks work. They never like, oh, we need to get together because the government's fucking shit up. They all knew the government was fucking shit up. They got together though because it was what you did, and we need to bring that back too.
And we don't have to wake everybody up. Like
you're not gonna.
Guy. He doesn't have to know.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to know. I talked to a guy in France today, said, hey, my package is here. And I said, hey, man, stay safe. I used to sign off with that. And now I say, stay safe, stay free if you can, right? I said, remember, in France, it's not so long. You guys had an underground, the French underground, right?
Yeah.
I go, it's probably still there. How did that happen? That didn't, it was people who already had commerce and had communications, right? And they just did what was right. And that's going to happen again. It's coming again. It's probably here already, right? If you're not invited into it, well, I don't know what to tell you. Get around different people.
Yeah,
do good shit, you'll get invited. I'll tell you that right now. A lot of
people ask how to build that network, and I understand again the panic that people feel. You already have that network, or you've not been putting any effort into relationships over the last decade.
And be careful with that. Be careful with that too, because while you think whatever you're doing is so minuscule, and it probably is, you are the dude they will make the example of because they are not scared of you, right? Be aware of the dude that comes in yipping, trying to get you to do something you shouldn't be doing. He's a Fed, and nobody's talking. Just like Jack was saying the other day, everybody signal this, signal. Do you fucking think that they can't look at Signal? Do you not think that the Feds built Signal? Why the fuck is nobody saying that? And you guys are just like, get on Signal. Why? So you can incriminate me with some shit?
Why? So that I can get on Signal and the government can partner with Apple or AT&T and just like, I don't care how encrypted it is, just every 30 seconds screenshot my fucking phone. Like you don't like there's apps that got caught doing that in 2012. You don't think your government can do that? You don't think Prism can do that? Are you out of your fucking mind?
But trans people are all up in arms this morning because some dating website used facial recognition and knows who the fuck they are, right? So she might not be a her.
Yeah.
And now it's out public somehow, right? If you don't secure comms, you need to look in PSK 31. You need to look at, obscure old ham stuff, but they ain't ready for a fucking pigeon. You might want to find out how the pigeons work, right? I joke about we're going to send a crow or a raven, you might want to get some damn birds. Like they're not ready for that shit. Like if you're really doing some shit on that level that you're worried about them, just keep in mind everything you've ever said, every photo you've ever sent. When they want to use it against you, believe me, it'll be in court.
And the majority of what we talk about in any of our networks is of zero concern to them.
My attorney likes to tell me, he goes, yes, John, I know you're right. I know you're right. You know you're right. On the other hand, you know what the execution of a federal search warrant looks like.
Yep.
When you go to federal court, you are not innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty until you can prove you are innocent. And they will come with all this crazy shit. They'll look for ABC, find XYZ, and they will get you. They'll come at you with 30 years, and you'll be happy to take 5.
And they'll do it if they can.
Over nothing. They'll do it even if they can't.
They'll do it because you pissed them off.
They will come in and look around, find something, and then go to a magic. They call it a snoop and poop. They'll come get something out of your place, or say they have something, to get a warrant to come back. The big thing now is kiddie porn. They will put kiddie porn in your computer, whether you ever had it or not. And why do you think every time they bust some dude, they always throw out kiddie porn now?
Yeah, because it's easy.
It's like the drug bust, right? We found thousands of rounds of ammunition, and the guy was a duck hunter and he had some meth. Whatever, not my problem. But it's always the guns, right? They've always got the gun stage, like they've rescued you from some great event that was about to happen.
And that always works on people it shouldn't. I remember like years and years, I was like 18 years old before I left Pennsylvania. And I remember one of my uncles, we heard something on the radio about a guy had like 2,000 rounds of ammunition. And my uncle's like, wow. And my uncle's a deer hunter and all. He's like, wow, he must have been planning something. I said, Mark, don't you have like more than that? And he's like, well, I didn't really think about it that way. I'm like, well, maybe you should. We go down to Center Supply, buy a fucking brick of 22 shells. That's 500 rounds. 2 of those, there's 1,000. Oh, he's got 1,000 rounds. That 2 bricks of 22s. They've been playing this shit forever. This is not new. I think a lot of young people don't get how old this game is. It's just ramped up now, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's also why older people see the pattern.
Yeah,
like
it's just like you see right through it.
They discovered copy and paste with the pattern, right? So they take it and now they can broadcast it to the whole world that this one person, John Willis, is building bandoliers for grenades, and that means he's going to blow up the Capitol or some shit. They'll say stupid shit like that, and if they say it 7 times on mainstream media, people will believe it. They'll put a picture of him with his bald head and his long beard. He's fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a comment here. These tactics do not work in the city. 30 houses on a block. You might know 5. And if you're lucky, trust 1. Never tell anybody you're prepped.
What do you think the answer is?
Well, I've lived in the city and never had that problem. So you can choose cities to live in and choose your block and develop the relationships and have good relationships. At the same time, nobody knows how prepped I am, even though I have a podcast about it and about homesteading.
Or leave the city. Leave the city.
And then leave the city. But I think that attitude is wrong. That attitude tells me you have not reached out to your neighbors, or you need to find a way to move because you chose the wrong neighborhood. Because my neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, inner city, I knew every neighbor on that block. I knew the drug dealer in the corner to the not drug dealing people who were the rest of the block. And we knew who to tell what. We'll just put it that way.
I want you to show me a tighter network than a group of guys from South Philly that live on the same block.
Yeah.
Don't give me that, and they all know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody for everything. Maybe they're not preppers, but like literally people are defined by sub-regions of neighborhoods in some of our cities that way. Like even where I grew up in Pottsville, it's a pretty small place, only 20,000 people in it, but like, you know, you were like from the Race Street crew, or you're from like they called it Up the Hills or New Minersville or whatever. Like, and there was these tight knit networks among parents, among kids. We couldn't do fucking shit. And the parents network, like if you did some stupid shit on your bicycle at 3:00 in the afternoon and got home at 4:30, you're getting your ass whooped. Right? Like you don't even know how it happened, but you know, it did it. Like it was like boom. So I mean,
if mom's asking the question, she already knows the answer. Yeah,
people are people everywhere. And if you live in a place with a lot of people, you actually have the ability to build a bigger network faster, because even if only, let's say, 10% are worthy. Okay, and you have 100 people right around you can talk to. That's 10. If I live in a place where 10% are worthy, just because it's rural doesn't mean you got worthy, right?
Right.
And then I got 10 people around me. I got 1. It's all in how you see the problem and how you go at it. And as far as telling people you're prepped, I agree. Don't be go advertising everything you have. But this idea like has come up forever, and most of it's from like, you know, dawn of the internet prepper porn planted this seed that like bikers are going to run around the whole country spending gas they don't have to be a horde and harvest from all the preppers. If I was going to go out and a shit hit the fan and start raiding people, and I had a map of where the preppers were, there'd be a big fucking orb around every fucking prepper. So I stayed the fuck away from there, because those are the people that are going to fucking shoot you. They're the people that have fucking surveillance systems up. They got dogs like the one laying on my feet that'll rip your fucking throat out, right? They can make a phone call and they have their fucking networks together. People are not going to come raid the preppers. They're going to raid everybody else if that ever even happens. I think that some people live in a world of books instead of reality.
People tell me all the time.
Books. I don't want to pick on anybody, but
people tell me all the time, like, because we show a lot of stuff. We make content. We walk around with the camera, like, aren't you worried about it? I go, man, if you get here, you're either the fucking best asset or you're my worst nightmare. There's not a bunch of you because you just got through 50,000 farmers with deer rifles. If you even made it to my exit, it's another 45-minute car drive to get here. Like the least of my worries is we're gonna know you're here before you know you're here. Yeah, exactly. And you might not ever hear a shot before your eyes are burned out with a fucking laser. I'll just put it to you that way. Like, don't fuck with preppers. You have a lot of communities that people don't even realize are happening, and people are just they're leaving the city and they want a different life, right? If you're doing something worth doing, people will show up. You know, tiny houses, communities. There's people buying property all around. Nicole knows where the properties for sale is near her. Do you think you're going to just move there? Not if she don't want you to. That's not going to happen.
No, I'm first in line for everything around me.
I've interviewed people that have been through real shit hit the fan, like Balkan Wars and stuff.
Yeah.
People that made it all grouped together. That's who survived. The people that tried to go it alone ended up fucking dead or miserable. And the people that were raiders, if you want to put it that way, when it did settle down, and it always eventually does, they all disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
right.
Gone.
Like the people that were part of the thug gangs and shit in the Balkan Wars, when it was finally quelled, those people, like, there wasn't dragging them through the streets and hanging them from a tree or something like Mussolini after World War II. They either ran away or maybe they just found a hole in the ground somehow. And like so that is not a strategy, man. Because I'm sure y'all have heard this. I don't need to be prepared. I got my gun and I'll just take it. Oh, yeah, that's going to work out real fucking well.
I'm going to go steal stuff from the grocery store if it happens, because nobody else is going to think of that. And how do you know it happened anyway?
Yeah, and when it happens, the grocery store is being empty is why it happened. That's already empty. That's why it happened. You're going to be in there fighting with some retard for the last fucking bag of fucking dried beans. Good luck. I think you know my friend Sonny. He was in Russia when it all collapsed. Yeah. He's here now. He was here the other day. Sonny Fairfowl. I know Fairfowl pretty well. When you say Sonny, you mean Sonny Kazikas, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, he just wants to be left alone. He's a farmer in Texas now. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a guy. Yeah. Go fuck with him. That'll work out really well. Yeah. That's just like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of rural people are in that situation.
Nobody, if you don't know the name already of the guy John and I are talking about, you have no fucking idea how bad an idea that would be. And anybody that lived around it would just see like this kind of rural, small scale farmer. No fucking idea. You're talking about a goddamn Russian special forces guy, right? That will kill you before you breathe. No idea of that. And you don't know what you're dealing with. That attitude, if the first person you run into with that attitude doesn't kill you, how many times do you think you can execute that before you're executed yourself? That's not a plan. Let me shout out survival tips and other stuff here, Jack. I know he sent you some emails. You should have him on the show. Okay. Go out for him.
Guest farm.
And he's talking about being able to run 2 miles. He just did 75 hard. If you're not familiar with that program, you guys should check it out. He just dropped like 100 pounds. That dude, awesome. You can drop him butt naked in the desert, the jungle, anywhere. You'll come back in 3 weeks and he's built a village. Like it's just insane, the knowledge that's there. And not only that, he could illustrate a novel on how to do it all. Like the dude's an amazing artist. He's an amazing craftsman. And he talks about stuff. I'm like, I never thought about that. Like, you know, we buy all these trinkets and things, right? And we have all this shit in case we have to use it. And most of it's never come out of a box. You don't have fuel that even matches it. But what if you don't have that stuff, right? Just the bare minimum stuff like Canterbury does and stuff. Like, man, there's so much shit that we because we feel good, right? It's an endorphin release when we go shopping. We like to collect. Yeah. I have 16,000 feet of collection here. When really, I mean, if we walked out into the woods out back, you only need, really what's in your pockets. But the skill's lost, and it's just a dying breed. And the guys, like we had a dude here at our last event was 93. I spent 2 hours talking to the man. He's seen all kinds of shit, and nobody's recording his stories. They're dying with these people, and they're gone.
Man, you never miss the opportunity to talk to a man that's almost 100 years old. If you do,
always go to the
stupid.
oldest person in the room and talk to them.
Get them talking.
Yep.
They forgot more than you'll ever know.
They were eating pickled tumbleweeds during the Great Depression. Las Vegas, it was like in Las Vegas, there was no Great Depression. There was food, there was everything. But if you stepped outside when they were building the dam, there was a line of 13,000 people waiting for a guy to die so they could go to work. Like they literally left and came to Las Vegas when they were building the dam. It's just insane to hear the stories. And the stories, they're lost. They're just not there.
Bill fell in, we got an opening, right?
Yeah.
Bill fell in, we have an opening. And that's, man, that tells you the guy wants to work, right? If you're standing in line waiting for somebody to die. There's, my grandfather, I remember one time I was out in his shop and I found these big ass rat traps. They were built with oak. You could knock somebody out with one and they had this fucking like a half-inch hole drilled in all of them. And I'm like, Grandpa, why is there a hole in here? He goes, they're not rat traps, they're squirrel traps.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? He goes, we used to take a nail them to a tree, bait them with peanut butter, and catch squirrels with them during the Depression. I said, how well did it work? He goes, it worked really good for about 2 years.
Till they were all gone.
Till they were gone. He said, then there was other things to trap. We do
promos every week, so you get some kind of silly little thing, right? So we did International Rat Trap Day, and we actually bought 1,000 rat traps. We went 100 miles in every direction to every Lowe's and Home Depot and bought all their rat traps. And we made a pouch that held the rat trap. We sent it out. And that's exactly what it was for. We had a little thing on there about how to catch squirrels with a rat trap. Screw gun them into a tree, peanut butter. You will catch every single time. Another
one, you take the little cheap mouse traps. Instead of fucking around for hours with a figure four, that's your activation for your deadfall. A lot of this stuff is really simple, but I probably don't talk about the primitive skills as much as I should because it's more visual than it is, audio, video type for things like we're doing today. But we need to bring that back. And I guess I forget. I grew up hunting and fishing my whole life, right? And I never strayed away from that part of my life. Even when I went in the corporate world, I still went hunting and fishing and camping all the time. And I think what can happen is you can kind of forget that, like, not everybody grew up that way. And like, it amazes me sometimes. If I meet like someone that's 18 years old and they don't know how to start a fire, I'm like, come on, kid. But I also understand when I meet a 40-year-old man that doesn't know how to build and I don't mean a friction fire. I mean just how to set kindling up and use airflow and one match and there's your fire. And they don't know how to do it. I was at a church thing one time. They were doing like nighttime movies for the kids where they set up like a drive-in and it was getting cold. So they decided they're going to make a fire in a fucking barrel. And there's like a bunch of grown-ass men can't get a fire to go. And the one guy left to go get a fire log. And I tried to keep my mouth shut and just let it go, and I couldn't. And so I went in like 5 seconds and like, whoo, there's fire everywhere. Like, wow, how'd you do that? I'm like, if I say anything,
magic.
You're mad,
right? Magic.
It's magic. Yep. The guy drove to the store to buy a fire log.
Yep. I remember you telling the story.
State of the world. There it is.
Yeah, that is.
You should check out Ready or Brim if you haven't heard of them. They get about 2 pounds.
Oh, shell crackers.
Yeah. I don't know if they are shell crackers. I hear shell crackers called all kinds of different stuff depending where you're at.
Yeah.
But Survival and Tips was telling me this morning, he's like, hey man, you got your pond stocked yet? And he was telling me about Ready or Brim. They just seem pretty cool.
Oh, they're awesome. I've got them in my little ponds. I can't have a pond as big as you without dynamite.
Yeah.
Maybe someday you'll get that dynamite, Jack.
Yeah.
Jackistan's going to have a big pond.
Jackistan will have a lake.
Excavator with a jackhammer, man. It'll do it.
If it goes far enough, it won't be Jackistan. It's going to be fuck off a stand. It's going to be an island, and there's going to be 4 Mondooses and turrets around the fucking island.
Yep. Awesome.
I'm pulling for you on that one, Jack.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go once around the horn and wrap up for today. Maybe do another one sometime in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah. Jack, what do you got for us?
I am Jack Spirko, for those that don't know me and who wonder who is this freaking guy yelling and screaming here. I run a show called The Survival Podcast. We've been online since 2008. We've done over 3,000 episodes to date. If you want to know about it and has to do with self-sufficiency, self-reliance, independence, and liberty, we've probably done it, and that's why there's a search box on the site. Again, the survivalpodcast.com. And if you're a lazy fuck and you don't want to type that whole thing out, you can go to short URL, tspc.co. You should do it just to see if it works.
Yep. John, what do you got for us?
I got a YouTube channel, SOE Tactical Gear, 2,600 videos. I do a series called Day on the Compound. It's mostly homesteader stuff. We also have a manufacturing facility on the other side of this wall where we build nylon tactical gear. 700,000 on Facebook, 62,000 on Instagram, MeWe Float, Gitter, Locals. I'm everywhere. I give you those numbers because you should join us, because obviously a lot of other people wanted to hear what we were saying. I do a live feed video, typically on YouTube, right every night about 9 o'clock. If you want to have similar conversations, I turn it on, kind of walk around the shop, show you what we made and what's available. Everything we make sells out in minutes. So guys that watch the video typically see it before it happens the next day, so you get access to it. And then the conversation is just whatever you guys drive. If there's a good conversation, I'll go 2 hours. If there's not any conversation, I'm not going to talk to myself. I do that plenty of time in front of a camera. So join and see what's going on. Come meet us in person. Awesome.
I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast at livingfreeintennessee.com. And I'm working with John on an event we're doing February 19th and 20th called the Self-Reliance Festival, where we have talks coming from people like Dr. Ken Berry about the proper human diet. John Willis is going to do some fun stuff. I'm going to talk about underground networking, but we also have tangible hands-on demos like blacksmithing, making essential oils or fuel, a bunch of other fun things that you can just see happen on site. Come on out, get your tickets at self-reliancefestival.com. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
We're also going to tell you how to make live animals into meat, and we're going to show you that.
Yep.
And real quick shout out for John here. Like, if you see my videos, I'm always wearing these cool shirts, or Nicole's wearing her hoodie. John just didn't sell tactical gear. He sends to sell some really cool T-shirts. I won't say why, but this one's really appropriate today.
Yeah, absolutely. and quick shout out, Bob on here. I don't know what he goes as on here, but he does all of our T-shirts. You can look through the comments and see who that is.
Yep.